Neanderthal. Okay, I've got YouTube up and going too, so we're on both channels now. So little updates and housekeeping things. Um, I have finished with the manuscript of the book. So far, it is 21 pages, 7 times 3 power numbers. Um, and It should be published by Sunday. It might be a little bit earlier. As soon as I get it published, I will be posting here on TikTok and having, like I think that they have like a book. Good morning, bird. I think that they have like a book review thing. There we go. I've got my phone and my camera like set side by side on my laptop, and I just realized that my phone was halfway over the thing. I think that they have a book review thing in TikTok, and what I'm going to do is, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to review it; it's my own fucking book, but I'm going to publish it like that so that it's a book thing, and so that should be up. Well, it's going to be up as soon as I get the book published and printed or, up on Amazon. Again, it's going to be on Amazon because I can publish freely on Amazon and because you can buy freely on Amazon in several different formats. And I want you to be able to access this freely. It will be for free, nothing. Um, as far as I know, Amazon doesn't, like charge me for it. So as long as Amazon isn't charging me and like you have to charge 25 cents or we're going to charge you 25 cents per book because I don't think I could afford 25 cents per book. But So it will be free and it will also be a bite, like it's 21 pages. It's not a whole lot. It's some pretty intense information, but it is not, I try to not use the uh, I can tell you that I'm very verbose with an extensive vocabulary, and I can use words that are $10 words really easily. And in fact, I love $10 words. Like I love language. Language to me is such a passion and such a beautiful thing. Etymology and linguistics. I almost actually went into linguistics instead of anthropology because I really, really love how you can trace human migration through language and how you can trace cultural shift through language and what depth language gives us of our knowledge of our world around us, right? So language is huge. But I really try and make sure that when I communicate in a way that's easily understood by the vast majority of people who my language is a second language for, or different reasons or accents or different things. So I try and make sure that my language stays readable. So the language is intense, or the information is intense but readable, and it is a bite size. Um, and it will be the first in a 3-part series. And those 3-part series will be human rights and the inalienable human rights that we are supposed to have that are currently being treated as if they are not inalienable. And then I'll probably start a series on ancient hominins. Just again, bite-sized information, not like a big thing, mainly because I believe that we're in an age where for most of us, bite-sized information is the easiest to grab. Fluently, I speak Swedish and English, but kind of influently and little bits and pieces here. I have a little bit of Lakota and a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of, God, there's like 2 or 3 others, German, a little bit of, sorry, it was not a question I was expected to answer this morning. I've got a couple of different ones. There's a couple of other obscure ones right now, and my brain is just shut off because I'm totally focused on one thing, and my brain will like, I can multifocus, but only like multifocus if that's the multifocus plan. Otherwise, my brain kind of like narrows down. Um, Thank you, Oregon. That's really big to me. Digital reading is difficult for me. How do I get an analog hard copy? Adult Slime. Um, if you will buy the book for free, because I want to make sure that it is done for like, so if I can get 5,000, then it hits the bestseller list, right? Which doesn't usually happen for a self print. And I want to make sure that the information is out there. And if we can hit the bestseller list, then we can get other groups of people to start reading it, right? But if you can do that and then message me, um, I will send you a printable copy so that you can print it out if you like. I have it currently on Google Docs. I don't want anybody to pay for it. I just want people to buy it, right? Like, I just want it to get out so people can like, so without sounding like I'm trying to be sanctimonious and get famous or anything like that, if 5,000 people buy it and it hits the bestseller list, then it becomes part of the popular conversation. It becomes part of the popular conversation. Republicans buy it, Democrats buy it, every class and every space buys it. And then the information gets into every corner. If I can get the information into every corner, then I can start spreading the information on a broader scale, right? I often think of this as my manifesto, but I don't like the term manifesto because of the fact that manifesto has been equated with shooting people. And that's not my goal, right? It's love, not hate. And so if I can get it bought, as in some form of thought transaction happens on their scales, then I can get it out more. And so that's why it's the buy thing. But I also want, um, one second, no, no. I also want it to be free because to me, education and knowledge should all be free. None of it should be paid. I also kind of think of this as like those early, the pamphlets that they used to publish from the early printing press, right? So what we're talking about is the fact that I am publishing a 21-page pamphlet, first in a three-part series on rights and inalienable rights. The right to life is this first. And this is without edits. So I'll go ahead and just read the first page. Inalienable rights come with inalienable responsibilities. We cannot expect another to uphold I cannot expect another to uphold my right to life if I do not uphold theirs. It is a simple, innate concept with a natural consequence. Why would you have my back? If you think I'll stab you in yours, will you stand guard? How would this benefit the species whole when the biological drive is not to replicate self, but to propagate the species? Yet Western thought seems to ignore this and think it can place value on life based on what it can exploit out of it. Using an arbitrary, which equals based on a specific value set by a ruling authority, scale, it weighs the value of your life in a system designed to wring you dry for the benefit of the dark triad supreme case. Class. Dark triad equals Machiavellianism, psychopathy, narcissism, all lacking the ability to feel or care how their actions affect even their own children, only that it serves a self that thinks itself superior. This class values a lack of empathy and emotion while viewing this lack as the supreme of our nature. Alpha does not exist in the wild. It exists in captivity to provide care for one's family when imprisoned by a predator. Allowing those who display these traits to enter their class because they see them as equal while valuing all other life as less, rating a life's value and therefore the inalienable right to it on a scale they've made up to serve them. So it's a bit and it's political and it takes an in-depth look at not only us in our society, but it gives answers because I do not believe in criticism without answer. So it will be available for free on Amazon by the end of this week, so Sunday. I will put out a video here on TikTok so everybody knows it's available. And if you have problems reading digital, please contact me and I'll put it in there. Please contact me and I will send you a printable download so that you can print it out. It's only 21 pages. And if it's really hard for you to print things out, like if you are stuck in the middle of nowhere, I want it to be accessible for all. I will see if I can make a print copy. And maybe I can make a print copy and I just have to sell that for like maybe 50 cents. I don't know how they'll let me do a print copy. I will try that first. But if I can't, to keep it free, if you can't access a computer, if you contact me, or not access a computer, access a printer, if you contact me and let me know, I will send you through the snail mail a copy that you can access. Again, it's only 21 pages. I'm not sure on the name. As far as I know, it's going to be Widda Ord, a right to life. And Widda Ord, a right to life, as far as I know, but that might switch up just a little bit. And again, I will have out a video that connects you directly to it as soon as it's printed. My website is up. Again, the link tree seems to be down. And they say that they can access it, but I can't seem to access it. And it seems to be problematic for half the people on here. I am hoping, though, with the printing, it might be set back just a little bit, that by the end of this weekend, I will have everything transferred link-wise onto the website. And the website has a bibliography section, and that's where all the links are going to go. So all the scholarly or all the journal links will be under the bibliography. And it's going to be categorized under there. So this makes it easier for you guys to find because it's so hard on the link tree. And then the t-shirts are almost done. I've actually got them up and printed. I just have to figure out how to make the store work. So if anybody understands Printify and Shopify and is willing to give me a hand, that would be really great. I just need some brain function because I don't know it. And I can't understand what the fuck I'm doing wrong with it. And I don't even understand how to make it like publish. Such a fucking Luddite. I'm sorry. So with all of that, that's what is coming this weekend. We have a book coming this weekend. The website is up this weekend, and t-shirts should be done. I'm sure I'll have it figured out by the end of this weekend. And the one final thing is Sunday's live is going to be pushed back 2 hours till 10 p.m. This gives a little bit later of a live during the week because the 8 p.m. live I've been kind of turning off at 10 p.m. because I'm just getting too tired. But I'll do a later live. And Haven Fox, my beautiful first birth child, is doing a makeup live at 7 p.m. that I moderate for her. And so to kind of make sure that they're back to back, right? People are welcome to donate. I am totally down with donations because that means that people who have like I that's how I do things. Like if I have extra money, I give it to people. Like that's just how so I'm totally down with that because it means that you have the extra money to do it. You have the ability to. I just don't want to make it a cost. Knowing that, hey, beautiful, knowing that I will be putting a donate here, Patreon here on the thing on the website when I publish the book. It will have a blurb on there and it will say, this is free because education should be free. If you would like to help for the next publication, like to help, I've got people helping me like edit and shit like that. If you'd like to help us all have a little bit more, please, here's donation links so that you can actually donate. But again, I want to make sure that the content remains free just because then it's your choice dependent on your capability and not my choice dependent on my desire, right? And so, and that's, well, it's not going to be with the t-shirts. I'll be real because I don't control that. Because it's all like something else printing it. I am keeping them where it's only a couple dollars more for me, but I'm also the person who did the logo design that is on all of the t-shirts. I want to make sure that they have something for the logo design that they did for me too. And so I don't have any job openings yet. No, I have. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to like right in front of your guys' face over there. I have like, things I need help for, but I'm not like, I mean, I'd love to get to the point where I have like people I can, well, like I am percentages. Anyways, so, oh, maybe I can show the t-shirt. Hold on just one second. So I'm having a problem with the website. So I haven't actually gotten it up and going fully and completely. And so I'm not sure if it's actually going to. Here is one. This is my, this is the one that it was the first one that I was thinking. And I'm maybe I can figure out how to do this. There we go. So if you can't read it, it says, did I point out the flaw in your white supremacy? And for those of you on YouTube, one second, let me get the camera. And I will hopefully, let me see if you can see it. Yes. And again, if you can't read it, it says, did I point out the flaw in your white supremacy? It has a logo on it that's scannable. The brand is scannable. Oh, I have one on colonialism. I haven't put that one up yet. Currently, what I have is, hold on. I have to erase my family tree because some stranger on the internet told me to. And the Enduring White Supremacy. And this is important to me because it's something that I've had to learn a lot. So easy, a Homo sapien can do it. Oh, thank you. That's a good one. I'm going to assume that you're okay with me using that chicken fried. And I'm going to put that it's you. Uh, I might find you later and give you some stuff. Okay, there we go. And then the other ones, I've actually got a list. It's on my phone. I've actually been putting together a list. Somebody asked me I saw actually, I think it was Ducray and Sleepy talking in a live, and I went, oh, maybe I should need to do that. And then the other one that I've got, and again, so I have a list. These are just the three that I've actually mocked up so far. The last one is, do you have the spoons for a conversation? Because for me, that's really no, sweetheart, and we're really just housekeeping right now still. And so I start at 8 a.m., so 20 minutes. We've been on 20 minutes, and so far it's just been, the book should be out Sunday. I did read a couple paragraphs from the book. Again, it will be all free, and, if you have accessibility issues for it, you let me know, and I'll do what I need to do to figure out how to get you a copy. Um, and it will be again on Amazon. I am asking, even if I like send you a copy or something like that, that you do buy it off of Amazon for free, just so that it actually records that it's sold. Because if we can get the numbers up there, then it gets out more, and it can get more cross cultural within our country and cross, small dick came in. You can keep it. When people act like Andrew Tate, they act like Andrew Tate because they have problems internally with their own self esteem. And because they can't seem to figure out how to love themselves and grant themselves grace. And because they're traumatized, they have decided to hate, and they've picked something to hate. And what they picked to hate is women. This starts with the ancient Greeks, and it starts with the ancient Greeks because the Greeks are pedophiles and they prefer young boys. But we do see it just carry on today. And we really see this carry on today in misogyny. And when we really see this carry on today in misogyny is because they've been injured. They've been injured. They've been hurt, because hurt people, right? And in that hurt and in that injure, they've focused on women as being the problem. And so they decide to destroy women. Married one, no fun. Let me tell you, it's really bad to be married 10 years and be sitting in a counselor's office and finally realize that your husband hates women, all of them. He thinks they're all whores, right? So Andrew Tate has, and I'm really big on what Greta said, and I agree. I don't think that's body shaming, because small dick energy isn't about the size of your dick. Small dick energy is, I fear the size of my dick is too small. And so I act like an asshole, because I know people with small dick energy that are hung, have a couple X's. I'm a size queen, so they're all hung. But I know people who thought they were too small and had small dick energy, and they weren't, right? They weren't. So small dick energy isn't about the size of your genitalia. It's about the fact that you think that you're too small, and to make up for your insecurities, you're destroying the world. That's it. That's all. I don't have a husband. I wouldn't. I have a nesting partner. He's got big dick energy. Well deserved. So, okay. So, anyways, um, how awkward to shift gears for this hard. So, we're going to go ahead and turn off the comments and get into today's topic of conversation. If this is your first time in my live, my name is Sarah and I am a Widda. A Widda is a scientist. It's an indigenous term for Celtic scientists. And I use it because I am globally mixed indigenous. I grew up Turtle Island indigenous, which is also my roots. Well, along with everywhere else. And in that, I try and bring an indigenous perspective into some of our prior knowledge. um, and I am an archaeologist by Western standards, and a medic by Western standards. So I also do indigenous medicine. And I'm a storyteller and a historian. And so I am sharing information because I don't believe education should be kept behind a $40,000 a year paywall or gate kept by $10 word language. We have been working for the last week on Neanderthal. We've done a bunch on Homo erectus before. You can find those lives on my YouTube, which will go over Homo erectus and the species that they speciated into. But now we're working on Homo neanderthal. And Homo neanderthal last week and earlier this week, what we were working on was DNA and what the DNA in Neanderthal shows us, and ancient DNA and the Nobel Prize winner Svante Pabo. And we were working on hearing and language in Neanderthals as well. And so what I do is about a 4-part or a 4 live per each part so that everybody can come in and hear. I do 4 lives a week. I do Sunday night now at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Friday morning now at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Usually I have my lives posted up so you can see them, but this week has been busy because I'm writing a book, and the book will be published by Sunday. I've been putting all my focus. But this next 4 parts of Neanderthals is going to go over art and jewelry in Neanderthals. And I think we're actually going to kind of toss clothing a little bit into jewelry because we don't have a whole lot of clothing knowledge, but it's also decorative. So it will fit in really well there. And then next week, we're going to talk about food and medicine in Neanderthals. So exactly a week from today, we'll start our conversation on food and medicine in Neanderthals. And then after that, we'll look at the tool assemblage. And then we'll see where we're going to go from there. So that's our next couple of weeks, 3 weeks of Neanderthals. The cave art behind me is the first cave art that we attributed to Neanderthals. And you can see this recreation on paper so that you can actually see the detail, the dating on it. So what they do to date cave art is there's like a patina that develops over the art on the cave. And when that patina develops over the art in the cave, it picks up trace elements. And it's the trace elements in the patina over the art in the cave that they're actually dating. Sorry, I just realized that I think YouTube is a little bit off on the camera. Oh, good morning, Wicked. If you have questions and my comments are off and you want to, you can go over to YouTube, and Widda Ord is the same over on YouTube as it is here. Me and cameras. It just kind of provides an extra step so there's not a whole lot of trolls, and also it's something I don't have to pay as much attention to. So what they do is they date the patina. And when they're dating the patina over the art, they're dating the chemicals in the patina. They're dating on this suggests that the oldest part of this is the latter portion of this. And that, the animals, and you can't see it as well. I'm going to have to pull this up on a site so I can show it. I know how to do that. You can't see it as well, but on the far right-hand side of this image, that looks like a man tied to a tree or something. So I'm going to flip my camera and show this picture up close. And for those on YouTube, hold on one second, and I'm going to pull it over. You don't need my desk behind me. Hold on, just let me flip my camera back around. I'm going to pull it over for those on YouTube, but it is also the thumbnail on this chat so that you will be able to see it later. Me and my cameras. So you can see, let me double check that it's kind of showing. Oh, fuck, right the fuck off. There we go. You can see on this that this here almost looks like this being tied to a tree is really what it reminds me of. Now, I mean, we've talked before about there's not really an old evidence of violence in the archaeological record, right? So if that's actually what that is, this might be actually our first evidence of a violent interaction between hominins, right? Because that is what it looks like to me. It has been described as a chair or a throne kind of image as well. So it could be a couple of different things. But as far as, I mean, like that was just my first thought with it. And again, we don't see evidence of violence in the archaeological record that far back. So, you know, it's more likely it's a chair. It's just that my mind, who has studied colonialism and, human nature for the last 10,000 years, as well as human nature prior to the last 10,000 years, which are two very, hey Dan, which are two very different human natures. My mind that has studied those two, that's where it went to first with it. But it is described as a throne usually, or a chair. Um, with this, what we see again is that the latter portion of this is the earliest portion, and everything else is added kind of later on. Um, the other thing that's really interesting to me, and this is a pretty kind of cool new thing. So, in case you weren't aware, within the last week, in fact, I read about it yesterday, and then I logged into TikTok and got a video from Sleepy that pointed it out. And it was that an amateur, like not even an archaeologist, was looking in a cave and went, "Oh, that's writing." And so we have now pushed back our earliest form of writing in Homo sapiens to roughly 40,000 years. This is yesterday. Yesterday. I will probably actually do some specific information on this um, in addition to our lives on Neanderthals. I might go live this week at some point and do something along that line after I get some more in-depth reading, because I just read the article, like a brief, and then I saw a couple TikToks on it that were sent to me. But we also have seen recently that there is what we think might be writing with Neanderthals. And this is a recent article as well. Now, when you look at, yeah, and that's why I have YouTube open, though I'm sorry, I love you guys. I'm gonna have to slip over to another page just because I will go back and forth. Let me discuss everything that comes up, right? When you look at the differences, you see that what they're indicating that they believe actually is writing is dots, dashes, marks. And if you look behind me, you see that Neanderthals are using what they're calling discs. They're not calling these, well, some are calling it dots or geometric signs. But for the most part, they call these red spots discs, right? Now, all of these cave paintings are done with ochre or charcoal. There are some fantastic cave paintings out there. If you have not looked, I would recommend going and looking. I'm not going to bring most of them in here today because most of them are attributed to Homo sapien. And so I do not want to, be showing you something that might not be the right something, right? But there are some fantastic finds, and I will have a few websites up on the link tree, or not the link tree, but in the website, in the bibliography on my website by the end of this week or this weekend. So before I go live again on Sunday. So I encourage you to look at some of the art. Just realize that make sure you see whether or not it's sapien or Neanderthal. Most things attributed after 40,000 years are attributed to sapien, and anything before 40,000 years is attributed to Neanderthal. The reasoning being is because sapien weren't in the area prior to 40 or before 40,000 years ago. And because sapien were in the area prior to 40,000 years ago, everything in that area is Neanderthal. But if we're looking at the fact that we've just decided that there's this, what appears to be dots and dashes in a form of writing for Homo sapiens, and dots and dashes are all over Neanderthal cave art. With these two very recent finds, I would not be surprised if by the end of the year or within the next 2 years, a couple of assessments come out and decide that Neanderthals are actually writing, and that the dots and the dashes that we're seeing in Neanderthal cave art is actual writing. And so that to me is going to be an extremely fascinating thing. We often think as Homo sapiens that our ability to write is what sets us apart. Like that's something that we just think really, really big on, right? In fact, we decide that anything that's prehistory is not as positive as history, because anything that's prehistory obviously wasn't documented, right? Because prehistory literally is defined as written word, because history is written story, okay? And history as written story means that anything pre-written story is prehistory. And this adapts just like every other age. This changes depending on what part you are in. I don't often touch on Homo sapiens, but it changes depending on what part you're in. So if you are, say, uh, in Ireland, Ireland is considered prehistory until roughly 600, I think. And the reason Ireland is considered prehistory until 600 is because, well, they wrote, because the Gaelic Celts did write and have a form of writing. It's on my neck, okay? Well, they did write. Their writing wasn't documentation. Their writing wasn't used for things like that because they believed, and this is proven truth by science, that by writing things down, you lost memory, because you do. Because once you've written it down, it's easy to forget it and come back to it because you've gotten it documented, right? And because of this, and because the ancient Druidic and Celtic or Widdic culture is very focused on knowledge. That's what the Widda and the Druid do. They are the knowledge keepers, the knowledge gatherers, right? And so they're very focused on retaining that knowledge. And that's why it's all oral. And they outlaw using writing for these things. You can write a letter to your friend, but you're not going to write down what happened with this king, because oral tradition is going to tell you this, right? You're going to speak it instead. It's going to be the stories that you pass down instead. And they're more accurate generally than written language, because they're not written propagandically, because they carry down as teaching tools through cycles, and because there's a lack of propaganda within them, and they're passed down. So the Widda and the Druid will teach in 3-line stanzas that have a lilt or an iambic to them, okay, modulation to them, that encourages memory and retention. And if I teach you 3 lines over and over and over again until you remember those 3 lines word for word, and then I teach you the next 3 lines until you remember all 6 lines word for word. And then the next 3 lines until you remember all 9 lines word for word. And this is how this language is, or how this knowledge is passed down, without losing knowledge. Whereas written loses. Written is written in a propagandic, usually. It's not about documenting both sides, usually. It's usually about documenting the losers from the winner's perspective. And because it doesn't, because it's trying to keep everything in a brief space, it doesn't document the whole, right? So anything prehistory changes depending on the region you're in. And it's just not, but we value writing as being one of the most important changes in us, right? And because we value writing as being one of the most important changes in us, is such a significant change, right? Which is interesting because we value it as cuneiform without valuing Egyptian hieroglyphs, which are way earlier than cuneiform and a written language. We value it as cuneiform without valuing it as Mayan, right? Or as Lakota, because the Lakota had the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota have a written pictographic language that they marked their calendars and they marked their years and they marked things that happened, they documented with, right? So we don't recognize those as written language, but we recognize cuneiform, which is really a Eurocentric thing. It's a really Eurocentric issue. It's a really Western thought process, white supremacist issue, right? Pushing it back to Neanderthals blows that white supremacist issue out of the water, right? It takes that Europeans did it first, even though cuneiform's not European, and it blows it away. Though yes, Europeans would have done it first, it just would have been the Neanderthals. but there's not a high presence of Neanderthal DNA in Europeans. There's a high presence of Neanderthal DNA in Asians, right? So I really am looking forward to seeing what is going to happen as we move forward with the evidence that we have in the last week of writing. Um, it really looks to me like I said, if we're counting dots and dashes as writing within early Homo sapiens, which it absolutely counts as writing to me, right? If it's recording something in dots and dashes, I mean, think of Morse code, right? So absolutely, absolutely, it makes sense to me that it would be. So if that is what we're counting, then we need to take a relook at a lot of the Neanderthal art because almost all of the Neanderthal art has dots and dashes within it. The other things that we really see within Neanderthal art is hands. We see a lot of hand prints, and then we see a lot of abstract shapes. The handprints and the abstract shapes, the handprints are pretty cross-cultural, right? Cross-species. We see handprints in a lot of different cave arts. Um, and the different shapes have a tendency to be like the ladder shape. You see there's this upside down triangle underneath this one in the picture behind me. We'll see that a lot of the shapes, there's a couple of things that really and I saw them, but I'm not sure because it doesn't exactly show where the art. Like, you're reading an article and it's like Neanderthals did this cave art, and then it shows a piece of art, and you're like, wait a minute, that's from a different cave than the one you're talking about in the article. So what the fuck? What we're seeing is red, ochre, or black, which would be charcoal paintings with animals, dots, geometric signs, hand stencils, engravings. There's also a lot of carving into stone, right? Sculpted figures. There's decorated bone tools as well, right? So when we're looking at these different things, what we're seeing again is a society. It's a society like us, right? That's one thing that I try and make clear in here all the time. Early humans are human. Their wants, their hopes, their dreams. All I want in my life, really and truly, and if you think about it really and truly, probably all you want in your life is security and stability and community. We all want a few luxuries, but we all don't need. And I think most of us are happy enough to go without them if we need to, right? But what we genuinely, deep to our soul, desire is a feeling that we have a space to be in without it being ripped away from us, depending on somebody's mood. That isn't going to change depending on whether or not we can afford it. Food to eat and we all want healthy food. We want it to taste good, but we all want it to be good for our body too and to nourish us properly, right? So real and healthy food to eat. Um, and somebody cool to talk to. Whether you're not really into talking to other humans and you'd rather talk to your cat, or whether you're really gregarious and want 20 people in your space, right? And a soft space to eat or to sleep, right? That's all we really want. And Neanderthals were able to accomplish that, right? Can you imagine living in? I'm going to pull up a picture again of the inside of these caves. The inside of these caves are beautiful. And if you take a look at these, the fluctuation in the coloring in the stone, I'm going to show you the picture. There's a better picture of the picture behind me on the cave wall itself. Again, I'll pull this over as well on YouTube. I apologize. If you look at this, can you see that beautiful fluctuation in color from that almost light white to this really gorgeous, like dark gold color, right? And here we've got our ladder and our person sitting here, and our dots are up here. These are our dots here, right? And this is this square here, and then triangle here, and you're not going to see so much the outline on here, I don't think, just because that's why they did the recreation, because it's pretty hard to see it. But look at the different, you can even see there's like a shape over here, right? That looks almost like a horse's head right there, doesn't it? right? So if you look at the wall of this cave structure, let me turn you back around. Sorry, I keep showing you my desk today. Really what I need to set up is that I can do these things and have a computer behind me so that I can show you things, or have like, I want to get like a, what you might call it, behind me. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm going to show you guys over here. If you look, you can see, I'm hoping that this is showing, and I want to make sure. Please don't pop it back. Let me try it this way. Yes, I just want to make sure that I'm actually, yeah, okay. So I don't know if you can see the clarity of it, but this is very, if you can see here, you've got ultralight here, and then you have like reds in here. This is that horse shape that I was talking about that looks like a horse head shape. But you can see these beautiful fluctuations in the rock itself. And that's what I'm trying to point out to you, is the beautiful fluctuations in the rock itself. Most of us live in apartments these days, right? Or spaces that somebody else set up for us. Sometimes we are able to paint our walls, but a lot of times not. And we also find that, you know, even a singular color, like we're all trying to do shit like sponge paint our walls, so it's 3 or 4 colors, right? Here you are, and the walls that you naturally live in are these beautiful, like variegated, irregular colors, patterns that come out in the colors. Now imagine that wall and a fire. It's dark, and your flames are flickering against that wall. And all of those beautiful patterns and all of those beautiful colors are coming out. They're singing to you, right? And you can see them as you sit around your fire with your children and your parents and your siblings and your cousins at night. You guys are eating food that's good, tastes fresh, and God, we all love the way that meat tastes when it's been charcoaled just a little bit on the fire, right? We don't want it burnt, but just enough of that crispy coat, right? And the juice of it, right? And so for about 5 minutes, though I'll be talking about other things, what I really want you to do is put yourself in this space. Put yourself in a cave, lit brightly by fire. It's not dark. It's not scary. It's warm and inviting. Your walls appear to be a part of you. They're living in the movement of the flames flickering off of them. And in that movement, you can see designs coming out. This is why you sketch things in those walls. As you breathe the earth that you're in, right? Because you're enveloped within the warmth of the mother, right? As you breathe the earth that you're in, the light flickering around you seems to give this feel of life. You already know it's there, but you can feel it genuinely, right? And in that, you're sitting in warmth and safety and comfort, eating good food, wearing beautiful clothing, talking to your kids about your day. It wasn't a very hard day, not by our standards. By our standards, it was an easy day. I maybe spent an hour hunting. My wife probably spent an hour gathering, or maybe she gathered or hunted and I gathered. I had buddies with me when I did it. A couple of girls, my siblings were there with me. We went out, brought home a buck. That's what we're eating tonight. Took us a couple hours in the early morning when it's sweet out, and we really enjoyed that time with the dirt underneath our feet, right? And while we were doing that, my mother was at home taking care of our kid. We've only got one because it's a small community, and you don't want to keep, you don't want 5 toddlers for somebody to try and control when there's, predators around, right? when you can't corral them very well, you know? So mom stayed home and took care of the toddler that we have, and she kept the fire lit so that when we all came home from the different gathers that we did, we brought home meat. There was some berries that were brought home. Water came from the river, you know. Brought some rushes up. We're weaving some rushes tonight, you know, so that we can actually have some good like floor covering and make a couple beds here in our cave, right? Put some furs down so it's nice and soft, right? Toss a couple of bear skins on even stone and you're fine, right? You have a luxury bed that you would dream to have today. Softer. In fact, they say that you should be sleeping on lambskin to prevent bed sores, right? So, um, and as we sit around the fire, and as my family is talking, grandpa's telling a couple stories. God, he's really old. And he sits over there in the corner and he's got my child on his knee. And he's my grandfather. He's been around for a hot minute, right? He's got my child on his knee and he's telling stories. And as he tells stories of the buffalo hunt that he went on a while ago and his youth, buffaloes seem to spring out of the wall. And I pick up the ochre that I used to decorate myself today. So if any other bands saw me, they would know who I am. They would hear me and see me, right? I pick up that ochre and I pencil it along the wall and I draw the buffalo. I put this buffalo inside the ladder because I've already got the ladder there. And it seems definite for me, right? To me, it seems now like the buffalo is coming out of the wall when I draw it on this ladder. This is my life. It's content. It's comfortable. I don't deal with depression. I don't deal with a lot of hurt or fear. Are there predators? Sure. But I know how to keep myself safe. Inside my cave, I'm safe. I have 10 hunters in my group, male and female. Like every adult can pick up a spear and kill, right? And defend. So even a large lion isn't really a scare for me, right? Maybe it'll pick off my child if I don't watch my child enough. But, you know, unless I'm alone, and we're never alone because humans should never be alone. Community is important. Even for us introverts, community is important. Does it mean that we want somebody up close to us 24 hours a day? No. But community is important, right? So I'm never alone. And in my joy, I have the ability to express. In my comfort, I have the ability to express. Today, we understand and know that when we art, it is because we have the time and we have the safety and security to be able to. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean all the time, especially in a trauma rich culture, right? And today, most art actually comes from trauma, right? Like most art comes from, you know, the deep pain that we feel, right? But in the beginning, in the beginning, um, when our creativity is developing, when our idea that um, we still believe that we're a part of the nature and the biome, but the idea that there's something more. And it's not necessarily like a omnipotent, but the idea of creation, the idea of faith, spirituality, right? The idea of spirituality. To start to develop that, which is what we believe is the start of art and the start of burial, right? And we see art and burial start at the same time periods. And we see that art and burial starting at the same time periods are expressions of this idea that there is more, right? So if art is an expression of the idea that there is more, like almost every other creative or advancement, it comes into space when you have a time to think of it, right? Some advancements don't. Some advancements don't. Some advancements come out of extreme need, or some advancements come out of mistake, right? But the concept of not only visualizing but placing it in a way for it to be indelible like cave art is very much about that shift of the brain that looks towards the esoteric, um, or the and I'm not sure what the best word or verbiage to use is, because it's not just about spirituality and it's not just about artistic endeavor and it's not just about it is that spark, right? We often talk about what sets us apart. This is one of the major things in our thought process, right? That really sets us apart is the idea that there's more and to express that more. Um, so I'm going to encourage you guys to go and look up cave art. Okay. Um, Pay attention and whether it says it's Homo sapien or Neanderthal. Okay. There's only 2 or 3 that are attributed to Neanderthal. But cave art is gorgeous, and almost all of it is before 30,000 years ago. And they're pushing back dating on a lot of it. And a lot of it that they're pushing back dating on it then makes it Neanderthal. So you keep a watch, you might find more. I'm going to go ahead, though, and open up for questions, and we're going to go ahead and stop on the specific to art. One more thing, actually. No, I have one more thing I want to show you guys. Let me find it before we move into the next step. There is a recent discovery. I don't think this itself is a recent discovery, but there was a recent discovery we were talking about of symbolism that they think might actually be writing within Neanderthals. And we were just talking about, what I would think with the writing within Neanderthals. It's not going to show it to me, is it? I had it up earlier. I thought there it is. Okay. Even older still, a piece of red ochre with deliberate zigzagging. This is not the one I was talking about that we think is actual like writing, but this is an early example of art. This is a piece. Oh, come on. Don't do that to me. This is a piece of ochre. Ochre is like a clay, right? And it can be broken up and made into a paint. But this piece of ochre has zigzag artwork on it. And this is older than the cave art. Let me show YouTube really quick, in case they're not here. So this ochre is older than the cave art that we have. And you can see that there's this zigzag, kind of triangular zigzag. It's pretty in depth, actually. Like it's pretty complex in its design. I'm going to go ahead and open up for questions in TikTok and open up my YouTube again so that I can see questions in there. If you're new, I'm very particular. I don't deal with racism. I don't deal with homophobia or gender phobia. My response isn't very pleasant usually. And I ask kindness. I'm giving kindness. I ask kindness, and we should all be kind to each other. But if you have any questions on Neanderthal art at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open it up so you can go ahead and ask. And we're going to then go into jewelry and our evidences of jewelry within Neanderthal, and a little bit of clothing within Neanderthal. Let me see. I actually was within some of my stuff the other day that I have from school. I had seen a couple things that I thought might be cool to pull up. And I meant to open them today, so I had them. And then I forgot in my last minute stuff. I think that's the one I want. I'm not really looking at the questions yet. Usually I'll give it a couple of seconds and then I'll look at the questions just so people could ask questions. I'm going to, as I'm doing it, I'm looking at points. That's not what I want. I'm trying to find, I know that there's a couple of things. Is that it? Aha. Well, there we go. Is that? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to show you this one as well. I've got 2 more to show. This is Lascaux Cave, which is Neanderthal dating. We also have a flute. Um, I think that these lectures, it's hard to tell sometimes what they, okay. So it does look like a triangle or a bowl. I'm going to flip this really quick. These are a couple other things attributed to Neanderthals. Look at that. Could you imagine being in that cave? I think the dot work on top might be early writing as we're developing and understanding that Neanderthals had writing, or not Neanderthals had writing, but that there might be writing within Neanderthals, and that we just pushed back our date of early human writing to 40,000 years. And so I think that the dots on the top might be that. This is carved into the wall. Can you tell that? Can you see that? Right? And then, wait a minute. That was Dr. Chang. She's so cool. This is the bone flute that we have. And this is a pebble. It's called the Tata pebble, and it's 100,000 years old. These are usually considered, oh, and this is what I wanted to show you. Look at this. This is almost like a unicorn. There's been a couple thought processes. This is actually, they called this a pregnant unicorn. They think that this was, and this is what's interesting to me. If that, so they're like, oh, it's a unicorn, but they're like, oh, that means that they imagined it, right? That they had the ability to conceive of fantasy creatures, which is not what that tells me. What it tells me is that unicorns might have fucking been around, or something that was attributed to being like that, which we currently have beings that could have been mistaken for it today, right? So that's what that tells me usually. Let me make sure with YouTube so I can pull this over onto YouTube as well. So this one is, sorry guys. Let me see if my camera action sucks ass. Please stop that. Thank you. So this is the one that they're saying they think might be a unicorn. This, you can see this engraving in the cave wall. You can see where they're cutting into the cave wall. And look at this. This, where is it? This to me, so you can see actually the unicorn is right here on this wall. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so it's backwards on the camera. The unicorn is right here, but you can see, like, look at that light patterning and the different lights that are within that. That to me is the most fascinating part about that, is the different light patterning, like the usage of, yeah, absolutely. The usage of not only the ochre and the charcoal. So this is the unicorn up on the wall, right? And this is the usage of not only the ochre and the charcoal, but the patterning of the cave itself. Could you imagine sitting in that? I would feel like I had clouds over me. This to me looks like clouds, right? That to me is like clouds. I can imagine like sitting right there and that being the firelight, like just, it does look almost like an Impala, right? The firelight just reflecting off of that, right? That to me, that's just beautiful. Like that, like I was describing, like we like to think of this as, oh my God, they lived in caves. It was so hard to live in caves, these dank, dirty, cold. That's not what cave living is, right? It's beautiful and it's safe and it's temperate, which means that year round it is the same temperature, which means that it never gets really hot. It never gets really cold. You're able to maintain a temperate climate. I thought narwhals were made up for an embarrassingly long time. Was awesome when I realized they're real. That's true. And actually, narwhal horn is what they used as unicorn horn in the Middle Ages, actually. What are unicorns? But we're absolutely seeing in this artwork that it's the same thing you're doing in your house today, right? Their walls are better painted than your walls, right? Because the cave walls are gorgeously variegated in color, and have all of those natural elements to them, right? And then they just put up art, right? We're not messing up the planet, we're messing up the livability of Homo sapiens and other species on the planet, right? So it would absolutely be amazing, like if we could figure out how to stop that. But really, what we're seeing is our us going, right? We're going to have to figure out ways to maintain us. Um, how do I? That's not it. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out something on this and it's not working. Oh well. Okay, so I'm no, the Neanderthals were not on all continents. Their DNA is today, but Neanderthals were only in Eurasia. They never made it into Africa, to our knowledge. They never made it into that. We haven't found Neanderthal tools or evidence of Neanderthal anywhere but Eurasia. I'm going to leave it open for comments for a couple more seconds. I'm going to remind everybody that my first book will be published on Sunday. It's in Widda Ord, A Right to Life. It's 21 pages because 7 times 3 magic numbers. And it is an in-depth on rights. The specific right to life. It is the first in a 3-part series, which will go over the rights. It will be a free publication on Amazon. If you have accessibility issues and you need to, you can absolutely go ahead and let me know and I'll send it to you in print. I'm probably not going to print it on Amazon just because I don't want it to cost people money. But we'll go with, a few different ways I can, work around to make sure that everybody has access. I want it to be easily accessible. I am asking, no matter how I get it to you, that you actually buy it for free on Amazon just because it drives the numbers of the bot copies up, which just gets the information out there. If I can get it to cross cultures within the United States and cross, borders, then maybe it can get out there a little bit more. And it goes over pretty much everything. How do we know the art was from Neanderthals? That's a really important question, Ducray. I did touch a little bit, but not too much. So we know that Homo sapiens aren't in the area at the time and that Neanderthals are. The art behind me is 63,000 years old in Spain, and Homo sapiens were in Spain at 63,000 years. Only Neanderthals were. And so that's how we know. Our understanding is Homo sapiens don't make it out of the Levant until 50,000 years ago. So anything out of the Levant before 50,000 years is attributed to Neanderthals or Homo heidelbergensis, depending on how early it is. The book is out by Sunday. That will be the latest date. It's already, so I have it. It's done. But I have amazing people who have helped, like through this whole thing from the very beginning. People have been jumping in to try and help, even here on TikTok and the lives, right? All the moderators and everything else. But I don't want people to feel obligated to like hurry shit or anything else either. So we're editing and making sure everything's done, and then I'll have it up. And it will be Sunday at the latest. It might be a little bit earlier. As soon as it is up, I will be posting it here on TikTok as a book. And so we will have it going. It might take me a couple other days just because, but I will also be doing it as an Audible. If I can do that for free, I have to check into that. And if I can't do it for free, I'll put it on YouTube as an Audible, just so that people can actually listen to it as well. Where's the Andrews calendar at? No mess. I'm not sure what that one is. Okay, so I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds and then I'm going to go ahead and turn it off and put it on subscriber only so that I can answer questions without being distracted by more. Um, what even is neurotypical? That's awesome. Oh, you're going to have to show me absentia. I want copies of that. Also, the website is up. Um, with the website, there is a cool merch on it. And I'm not on there yet. I will be as soon as I'm done. But currently, Pride Dragons, White Stars, Neurodivergent, and Two Spirit Focused in store is up on there. So please go ahead and take a look at that. White Star has a lot of really cool shit. A lot of stuff. There's an ADHD shirt that I'm like, that's mine. I need that, right? So take a look at that. It's under the cool merch tab. Absentia, when you're out and when it's published, let me know. And I want to put it underneath the cool merch because that Absentia is writing a free neurodivergent socialist guidebook. And that sounds like something I need in my life. So let me know and I will definitely put it up because I think that that's something more people. And it's titled, What Even is a Neurotypical? Well, weird is what I would say. Weird. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the comments for everybody but subscribers so that I can read back through them and answer any questions that came across, right? I'm really totally down for this. I'm like, Absentia, give it to me now. That sounds like a book I need in my life. Let me go ahead and settings this. Okay. That's not what I wanted to do. I know there's a way for me to get like the comments completely up so I can see them anyways. Let me. Absolutely, Absentia. Supporting each other is important, right? Like not only that, but especially people who are trying to get out information, right? Okay. They have limited how many comments they'll let me scroll back. Luckily, this wasn't. Okay. I scrolled really far back. I don't need all of that. Horse. Probably within the cave art. I did see a couple horses within there. I like the ring coming off a 3-story barn. That's totally cool to me. And I like how like if you look at it, like you're right. There's like maybe a pig up on that top there. There's a cow down there on the bottom that looks like a 3-story barn. It could be an antelope. I actually think that the wall art actually looks like a 2-horned beast instead of a unicorn. The one that they're calling a unicorn, that looks like 2 separate horns to me. That looks like an antelope to me. I'll tell you, like that really does. I think that there's rhinoceros ones as well. I'm not sure if I saw that. Oh, rhinoceros could be the basis for unicorn. There is conversation about that, but there's also like an extinct animal that they think could have been the basis of unicorn. And there's actually like a couple of animals that are alive today that have like really weird twisty horns that will unify, like and turn into one horn. And they think that that might be it too. An impala was the other one, like an antelope or an impala, which an antelope or an impala is just a type of antelope. But yeah, it totally looks like that. Yeah, people do pay a lot of money for that kind of interior. That's very, very true. And we are seeing educated existence within Neanderthals, right? This is educated existence. And that's an important conversation to have and an important thing to point out that it is educated existence. It's high function, right? It is a high function of thought process and a high function of comfort process, right? Your husband has a friend who was born in a cave his family lived in Central America. That's pretty cool. Talked about eye color. What about limbal ring common in the Middle East? I have that. The dark ring around the iris? Huh. I didn't know it was not typical. I have no clue about it. The limbal ring. I don't know what that like I just Googled it and it's that ring around the so it's like I don't know if you can see, yeah. Like it's this darker color around the gray of my eyes. It's called a limbal ring. Um, I don't know. I will look, but I don't know if they have anything that they say like genetically linking paleoanthropologically. Are there any other writings in cuneiform found in other places in the world? No, cuneiform is really only found in the Middle East, to my knowledge. And I think I answered the question about so dating, we did go over that part earlier as well. But let me go over it again. How they know with the dates is because the patina that covers the rock art, like there's a level of patina that covers the rock itself. And so it's covered the art and they're dating the patina itself. So anything underneath that level of patina has a later date than the patina itself does. And again, that patina is just like this layer of like calcification, I think. I'm not exactly sure what it's comprised of, but it's just a layer that covers the walls of a cave. And so it's underneath the art as well as over the art, right? Did pre-humans not live in areas with no caves, or did they make some other kinds of shelter? So we've talked about this one slightly before. This is a matter of my supposition and my hypothesis and thought process and my understanding of indigenous communities and my understanding of people. I believe that Homo erectus and Neanderthal would have had other methods of making shelter. We are talking about people who were able to sew complex clothing. So, why can't you sew a couple of hides together to make a cover for some wood so that you have an early form of a tent, right? If you're traveling. The other thing is all you can have to do is break a few branches or gather a few branches and you can form a lean-to. There are several methods of making shelter that will not leave a trace in the archaeological record. And most communities pre about 10,000 years ago, anyways, actually, so we see our earliest forms of permanent shelter at about 13, 14,000 years ago in the tepes. Gobekli Tepe is like 10,000 years ago, and then they've recently found a new tepe that is like 14,000 years ago, right? So um, I believe that we have plenty of forms of shelter. We just didn't have the desire to make those forms of shelter indelible. We had no need to be permanent, right? We didn't feel the need to ensure that future generations knew we were alive. We felt the need to make sure future and generations were able to be alive themselves. Our drive was not to be immortal. Our drive was not to be gods. And now we have this drive to be immortal. We have this drive to change the planet in a way that will leave record of us. And we feel that unless somebody leaves this indelible and permanent mark on the planet, they're not as civilized. The problem that I have with that is that that indelible permanent mark and that egotism and narcissism that says that I need to be remembered for all eternity really is egotism and narcissism, and it doesn't benefit the species whole, right? And not only does it not benefit the species whole, but it creates an environment that is problematic for the world, like the planet itself, the animals in the planet. Like it creates a bad space for everybody. So I believe that Neanderthals and Homo erectus absolutely had shelters. I believe that it's possible to make those things. I understand that I could go out in the middle of the woods today and build a shelter with not a damn thing, not even an axe. I could build a shelter. An axe would be a lot easier, right? But um, I do believe that they had the ability to build shelters. And the biggest thing to me that states that they would have had to have this ability is the fact that they're traveling globally, especially Homo erectus. Caves aren't a dependable 5-minute walk from each other, right? You can't depend that there's going to be a cave for you to find over the next horizon. And if you can't depend that there's going to be a cave for you to find over the next horizon, but you know you have to have shelter from the elements or you will die. Either the elements themselves will kill you or the predatory animals will snatch you off laying out in the middle of nowhere while you sleep at night. Well, your children are sleeping at night. So as you're traveling, you're not traveling as a couple, just you and Joe, right? You have you and Joe and grandma and grandpa and your parents and your grandchildren, right? Like you have your whole fucking community. You're not traveling in singulars. So you're making sure that your whole community is safe. Shelter is safety. Shelter is a primary need for Homo sapien. Without shelter, we are exposed to elements and we are exposed to predatory nature. Um, so that is why, to me, Erectus and Neanderthal had to have other forms of shelter. The amount of traveling, the amount of movement that they're doing, and not having a dependable shelter over the next hill, I don't think they would have done it. And I know for a fact that there are 1,000 different ways to make shelter that are not permanent, that leave no trace, and that are simple and easy if you understand the environment that you're in. And they understood the environment that they were in, like full on understood the environment that they were in levels that we don't today. Only indigenous peoples understand levels that high. Like only indigenous peoples understand their environment as high as the Neanderthals did. And even indigenous people today don't understand their environment as high as the Neanderthals did or early Homo sapiens did, unless they are the Sentinelese who have not faced colonization, or the peoples in Brazil, right, who have not faced colonization, who have been able to hide from it, right? So I do believe that there are other forms of shelter. I just don't have a proof of it, and I'm probably not going to find proof in the archaeological record because it dissolved by intent. They weren't trying to leave record. It wasn't about being remembered. It was about living. Difference in Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. There are some skeletal differences between Neanderthal and Homo sapiens. Neanderthal are short and stocky and broad. This keeps them warm. Skin dissipates and retains heat. And if you're short and stocky, less skin, you retain heat. And if you're tall and lean, more skin, you dissipate heat. So they were short and stocky. They were lighter of skin on average, but not European white. Probably the lightest that you're going to see is roughly my color, but most likely most of them are going to be a few shades darker at their lightest. And you're going to absolutely see people who are very dark, right? So they do have lighter skin genetics, and they are a lighter skin species as a whole, but they're not Northern European white. They're more Caucasian, which is North Africa and the Levant, right? And they had lighter eyes because of a low light environment. And they had these very large noses, nostril openings, and sinus cavities. And those helped them to warm the air before it hit their brain. Whereas we, as an early species, are extremely dark of skin. We have brown eyes because this is for a high light environment. We're very tall and very lean. And we have 4C hair because 4C hair actually creates a lattice work over the top of your head that allows your scalp to cool. So in a heavy highlight environment, it allows you to not overheat, not boil your brain. So those are some of the early differences. There's also some other differences in their skull morphology. They have what we call an occipital bun, which looks like a cinnamon bun stuck this back of their head. And they had heavy brow ridges that were like a shelf out over their eyes, which is also going to protect their eyes in higher light and create kind of a shade. So those are the differences that we see. Are the little dots rain hitting on the rocks to the opening of the cave? Oh, that's a possibility. I do think, though, that the little dots are probably having to do with um, uh, accounting. I think that as we're looking and realizing that there is writing earlier, that I think that this has to do it. Hey guys. Rune is actually a word for a specific type of alphabet that is very okay. So alphabet means the amount of characters used. I think it's under 30. And that each character doesn't form a full word, but it's symbolic, or not a symbol, sound. Each character forms a sound. That is what creates alphabet. Um, Cuneiform is fuck. I think cuneiform is a runic. So like, okay, runes are where the symbol will represent a sound and a full word and possibly something else. This is also hieroglyphics. The difference is that runes will represent a sound or a symbol, but you have to decide based on what's around it. Whereas cuneiform will represent, or not cuneiform, hieroglyphics will represent a sound and a symbol, and it will tell you which by a mark next to it. The cartouche over it indicates it's a name, things like that, right? So what it is that the words mean different things. Alphabet means the function of that written symbology. Cuneiform is a runic alphabet, to my understanding, but runes are not based on cuneiform. It's just that they're the same type of alphabet. Okay. Whereas hieroglyphs are a different type of alphabet. Alphabet is only applied to one certain type of written language, but we have come to use it for all written language, right? We come to use it as being part of written language. But it specifically describes a written language that specifically has a small amount of letter, a restricted amount of letters over, I think it's over 12 and under 30. Like it can't be really, really small. Over 12 and under 30, I think. It's been a second since I looked at linguistics from this perspective. And it has to represent a sound and not a word. Whereas runic is under, I think runic is under 20 and has to represent both a sound and a word. But rune is a word for an alphabetic type. And it refers to a specific group of runes, right? So rune actually means the type of alphabet that runes are. In fact, Ogham is considered a runic alphabet. I believe that, Bird. I'm going to look more into the limbic rings. I had never really heard about that. Okay, that makes sense. It could be an enclosure for the animals in a garden. That's really real, Harris. Okay, it is saying it's not, it's a logo syllabic script for cuneiform. Now I'm trying to see where my stuff on language is. Sorry, I'm totally okay. I'm going to go sideways on this, and I don't want to do that. So we can talk more about this on another. I'll look into it and give some different information on it once I can pull up the information segments in my brain that I need for it. But just so I don't go sideways, right? It is very interesting. I love language. Language is like a passion, but it's not one we do a whole lot on it. Okay, so we're going to go next into jewelry and decoration of body. So what we see within Neanderthals, oh, yeah, I hate that. Okay, I'm going to turn off comments just so that I don't get distracted. Love you all, but I will, and we know this. So What I want to go into next is decoration of body, decoration of self, because this is important. Just like cave art and possible writing and burial show us a advanced thought process that needs expression in some way or another, right? Above, God, I'm not even sure the best wording for it. So I want to make sure that people understand that me and my dog or me and my tree are consciously equal. Okay. We have an equal value and an equal consciousness. Okay. Um, and our conscious levels have many of the same capabilities and understandings. The differences are that my conscious level allows me to see and plan for a future, really, and to see things outside the physical now, right? So the difference between us and the dog or us and other animals, there's a lot of differences, and very few things that are just unique. Like other animals make tools, right? Very few things that are just unique. But one of the things that we I do not believe have seen in any other species is the idea of tomorrow. We see other species that prep, right? Build a home, store food, things like that. But the let me plan to have a vacation, or tomorrow I'm going to write a book, or tomorrow I'm going to gather nuts, right? That isn't part of other species' thought processes, just like art really isn't part of other species' thought processes, and burial isn't. Now, do we see these things in others? We do sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've seen art a couple of times. I could not name the species. I just think that I've seen things that have come across along that line. And I do know that there are other species that we have had evidence of some form of understanding that the dead is like still meaningful, like, like covering with leaves or covering with dirt, right? I know that we've seen that in a couple of different species. I could not, again, name them off the top of my head. These are things that I've read about years ago, probably. Um, but when we look at this spark that gives us this understanding that there is a world that exists outside us, the here and now, the right here, the seeable, the touchable, right? Um, is when we start to really start expressing, right? We see this expression within cave art, but we also see this expression, like we showed that flute. Um, and I have to say that the flute itself has been um, like they're not positive. They're like, well, maybe, like there's not a lot of solid evidence. But there's also evidence, like they say that could be a taphonic process, which is just, part of the world. The flute itself to me, though, really looks like deliberately carved holes. And I do have to say that there are things that have now been proven to actually be Neanderthals, that were not proven before to be like the ochre. The ochre is something that I was shown in class, and the ochre with all the marks on it being shown in class, I was told, and we were told that this is not definitive evidence of art. To me, this is definitive evidence of art. Now, mind you, during that class, it had just come out that the definitive evidence of this art behind me was absolutely Neanderthal, right? And so a lot of this stuff is, stuff that's coming out within the last year where they're doubling down. And they're going, okay, so this now is definitive evidence, right? And so the idea that the flute wasn't definitive evidence at the time could have changed. I have not looked. But we are seeing this movement forward of expression, and we're seeing this movement forward of expression in several different areas of expression. And in all those different areas of expression that we're seeing this movement forward, self-expression is paramount, and understanding of space within environment is paramount. This art behind me is really about space, right? We were just talking about it. Is that rain falling off the cave wall? Is that an enclosure? It looks like a 3-story barn, right? This is space, and it shows animals and people within space, right? And so these things are really about defining, and about expression of that defining, right? Defining space, defining place, defining us, defining needs, defining thought processes, defining family lines, defining bands, right? Um, and to me, early jewelry and early body markings um, are all evidence of that defining me to somebody else. We see throughout most societies that if you look, everybody tattoos, but only certain Turtle Island indigenous people tattoo specific patterns on their chins. There are other groups that tattoo chins. The Ainu people, Ainu people of Japan tattoo their chins and their whole lower faces. The Maori and a couple of groups in the Pacific Islands, right, tattoo their chins. But the specific patterns that we see in Turtle Island indigenous people are specific patterns of identification. The specific patterns that we see of the Maori and the Polynesian people are specific patterns of identification. They identify your family line. They identify the clan or the people that you belong to. Clan being like your family line again, right? And they identify. They're often either marks of your own personal activity and history are marks of your family history and activity. They're kind of like an honor badge, right? Um, Feathers are global. Feathers are Neanderthal. We'll be talking about that in a hot second. Raptors, including golden eagles, are Neanderthal. And we'll be talking about that in a hot second. But a plains head's dress is a badge of honor. It is given to a warrior who has proven themselves over and over and has become a leader. Don't put on somebody else's fucking Purple Heart. That's a shitty behavior, right? That's where the wrong comes in. You are not only appropriating somebody's designs and somebody's patterns, but you're also stolen valor, because that's exactly what that is, right? So when we're looking at these things, what we're seeing is that most methods of identifying us are global. Most methods of identifying us to other peoples, by tribe, by family, by community, by activity, most methods of identifying us to other peoples are very global, and they predate Homo sapiens, or at least we're seeing them in other species besides Homo sapiens that Homo sapiens lived along with. And when we look at this, when we see and understand this, what we can see and understand is that we have been expressing ourselves, identifying ourselves to others for generations, right? And this artwork, expression of self, this is the oldest form of us, right? This is the oldest form of what we've been doing to identify our place within community. Before we have nations, before we have cities, before we have religion, before we have race, we have, I'm a red paint clan, right? We have, I belong to the coyote. We have, I'm seal people. Before that, okay, before we identify in these very white Eurocentric ideas, because most of these ideas are created by the people who white Eurocentric ideas adopted it from and adapted it from, or not adapted it, appropriated it from. I would like to see the sculpture. I don't have us. Oh, never mind. That's something else. Um, but um, when we realize that, we stop this idea that we're supposed to tell other people how to identify. You should never be telling another person how to identify. Never. You can tell a person whether or not they belong to a closed group. Sure. Sorry, you don't belong here. We don't accept you, right? It's part of freedom, right? But you cannot tell a person how they're supposed to identify. You can tell me that I don't belong to the Red Paint Clan Easter Band Cherokee. And you're right. My grandmother did, but I don't, right? But you can't tell me that I can't identify as Indigenous, right? You can tell me that I can't identify as belonging to an Indigenous nation because I don't. But you can't tell me that I'm not Indigenous when my bloodlines and my heart and my raising are, right? And you can't decide that looking at me, right? So we need to stop trying to tell people how they're supposed to identify themselves, right? We need to start understanding that people will identify themselves to us. And these are our earliest forms of it. What we see with Neanderthals for self identity, after we see things like the cave paintings, and around the same time, we see one that's really cool to me is there's a shell that has residue of ochre in it. And this shell has a hole drilled in it. So it's obvious that it was worn. But the residue of ochre, we're not sure, like, okay, so it's down one half of the shell. So it could be that it was painted on the shell, or it could be that the shell was used as a carried mixing for ochre to paint the face. So if we saw that little thing of ochre, right? It's basically a hard form clay that you kind of grind against stone to get a powdery substance, and then you mix that powdery substance in water. That's how you create paint with ochre, right? So if I carry a couple of chunks of those in my belt pouch, and I have a shell around my neck that is got a hole drilled on it, so I wear it, and I need to paint my face in the morning, I'm going to take that ochre from the belt pouch and I'm going to rub it against some rock probably, and then I'm going to put it in the shell. I might even be able to rub it against the end of the edge of the shell. I'm not positive. And I'm going to put that in the shell, and then I'm going to mix it with some water, and I'm going to paint my face, right? So now I've identified every morning. Well, maybe not every morning. It's not going to wash off that quick. I'm not taking a shower every night, right? But I refresh my identity when I put on my clothes, right? I continue identifying to others as I'm doing this, right? And the other thing that we're seeing is that there is evidence of usage of feathers and talons as decoration. So the understanding, okay, that one's on that. The understanding is that Neanderthals using different feathers. They use eagle feathers and talons. They use corvids, crows. And they're also doing different, like they have bear claws evidence. Um, and they have large cats. Within all of these, what we're seeing is that there's evidence that they're possibly doing piercing. And this is in the placement of these things. So if I find a bone that is flat, or not flat, but tiny and round and a little bit long, and I find it on my skull, right? You find it here on my face, then that's evidence that that bone was probably worn as a nose piercing, which is an early nose piercing, right? You take a small chunk of bone and you file it and you grind it and then you use it. And you can grind the point sharp enough that it in itself, it's the needle that pierces through your nose, right? So we have evidence of early piercing. We have evidence of cutting. So the reason that they believe that they're using the talons is you can see around the base of the talon itself cut marks where they removed the skin, and then kind of like this indentation where they would have tied, like carved an indentation and tied leather wrapping around that so that they can wear the talon. We see shells that have holes drilled in them for beads. And we also see recently, very, very recently, they found a bear skeleton that shows cut marks on the phalanges. And they believe, and it makes sense, that the only reason that the cut marks are there on the phalanges is because of their hold on a second. The only reason the cut marks are there on the phalanges is because they're taking the skin off the phalanges so that they can incorporate the entire bear within this. Let's go ahead and put a different picture up, just because we get down low, and usually it's because the artwork behind me. We have moved on from the cave art. I don't have any pictures of the different items. I do have a couple that I've got on websites, so I'm going to show a couple of those as we go through. I just have to get them to the point there, showing the pictures. And then is this one that had the shell on it? No, it's not. Feathers, talons, the bear. So what they're showing with the bear is that the cuts on the phalanges shows that they were actually taking the hide off the hands as well, right? The paws as well, which makes us believe that in taking the whole, you create an outfit that has the bear claws on it, maybe the bear head on it, right? This is evidence of decorative clothing, right? This is evidence of clothing that most likely it's actually evidence of clothing that you wore to impress, right? I killed a bear, right? Like, see my bear, I killed my bear. I'm going to wear my bear around everywhere so you can see that I'm a big, strong badass and I killed a bear, right? And so, oh, come on, I know I have them. Where did I have them? And so we absolutely see that this evidence really goes far back, this evidence of decor. Here's the shell. I am trying to find the talon pictures, and I don't know where the talon pictures are. So here's a picture of the shell, and you can see it's actually got a couple holes. So probably, you got a string that goes through here, right? It's also possible that this, the shape of it, maybe they actually tied it together so it could hold stuff within, right? And you can see here, there's ochre here. This is all ochre here along the edge. Let me pull this over so that I can show you from the other one as well. Hi, cameras. It wants to track my head from the YouTube camera for some ungodly reason. And here is the shell. And this here is the ochre. This to show how how the last couple of years have really affected archaeology and anthropology. Dr. Melanie Chang was my professor in school, and she again is a foremost paleoanthropologist. And just over a year ago, Discord. Oh, okay. They're talking something else. This just over a year ago, we were still debating things like art in Neanderthals, and again, like the cave art just redated, decor in Neanderthals, and whether Neanderthals had actual burials. Like, we were still not sure for positive, right? It was in that class itself that I brought to light, because I totally thought that it would absolutely be real. And it was that Neanderthals actually have evidence of medicine in them, right? And so when we're looking, we have to take in this understanding that so much stuff is just coming out. Again, we have so many advances within this field within the last 10 years. The ancient DNA advancement 20 years ago, all of these advancements mean that language or understanding of beings is changing. Understanding of ancient humans is changing. I would assume with things like eagle talons and claws that we're looking at necklaces or maybe things that are sewn into clothing. I would assume the pattern on the ochre is a pattern that you're going to find repeated in different designs, maybe on clothing, maybe painted on clothing, because you can paint leather with ochre. And I would assume or think that you can also decorate clothing with feather and shell. It's possible to decorate clothing with these. When we look at the thought with the bear skin, what we're looking at and what it's documented as is for clothing, right? And so this would be decorative clothing as well. Uh, so just like we were talking earlier about sitting in this cave with this art shining off the walls, I want you to think of yourself sitting there not in a rough skin, but probably some combination of hide and other fibers that you're finding because of the fact that we can weave reeds, we can weave grasses. Early people in hot environments are absolutely using le- sorry, reeds and grasses to create clothing that is cool for their environment, right? And so you can imagine that you're sitting there comfortably in comfortable clothing that is beautiful, that a member of your family or maybe yourself spent hours making and putting their love into and decorated to show who you are to the world. So that when you put it on in the morning, I know that you're a member of the bear people of the caves in the forest, right? So that I know your identity. I can see this in your paint. I can see this in your jewelry, and I can see this in your clothing. I'm going to go ahead and open it back up for questions. Um, Probably about 10 minutes out from taking off for the day. You can absolutely post your doll, Mish. Hello, Dawn. So again, as I wrap up, hopefully, well, no, I'm pretty positive Sunday. But hopefully before that, the book will be published. It will be out. It will be for free on Amazon. Um, and if you have accessibility issues and you need a hard print copy, and I can't do a hard print copy for free on Amazon, I might put one up there for $1 so that people can buy it at a hard copy if it won't go for free if they want to. If not, what I'll be doing is if you give me information that you need a hard copy and you buy the free one online, I will send you a hard copy. If that's something you need to contact me because it's not something I'm going to do for everybody, but it's an accessibility thing. And I like to make sure that everything is accessible, or give you a way to print it out if you have printing capabilities. Um, it's already up on a Google Doc, so that is not too bad. I'm going to use the artwork that you did for the cover, actually. I'm going to use the in Widda Ord brand for the cover, and then I'm just going to put wordage around it. Gong made my beautiful artwork that you're going to start seeing on the t-shirts that are going up. There is the brand on the website itself, or it will be. I think it's only on the store website. But Gong did that. And they have done some amazing artwork. Uh, we were able to take a QR code. And so my brand is a QR code that you can scan from anywhere and it will lead you to my website. So as you're wearing a t-shirt, people can scan the QR code off of the t-shirt and take them to the information. And it will also be on the cover of the book. The book will be out by Sunday. It's just going through some final editing stages. The t-shirts, I'm trying to figure out the website. This is really just the website for me. Shopify and Printify are not my executive function. And so that is coming up. The website is up. It is in my bio. And hopefully by the end of this weekend, though my primary focus is the book, hopefully by the end of the weekend, most of the links will be moved over from the link tree and they will be put under biographical sections within the website so that they're easy to get to. And also the website has a link to the Discord channel if you'd like to join us in the Discord channel. Um, Trying to make sure I've got everything on my list. I think that's everything on my list. When the book comes out, I will post up a TikTok about the book and I will make sure that there's information out for everybody. Hmm. I do think that Homo neanderthal and Homo sapien worked together to learn things, Erica, but all evidence shows that sapien actually learned from Neanderthal, who had been around for like 300,000 years, as long as we're currently around, before we came onto the scene. And so they had as long as we have now of understanding the world around them to teach sapiens when they came in contact with them. But all evidence shows that all of those mixings and meetings actually kind of is an exchange of information that pushes both species forward on the information highway. Why is hmm, some of the comments are like asking me to approve them? Uh, Yes, animal bones and teeth for decoration too, absolutely. I didn't mention bones, you're right. There is evidence of bone for decoration. There's a little less evidence of bone for decoration, but there is some evidence. Again, the majority that we're seeing that we're really totally attributing to decoration is feathering. Again, a couple bones, like there is like piercing evidence, and those are all bone. Claws. Claws are a huge one. Talons from and they specifically are talons from golden eagles and corvids. Um, and then claws from bears are seen. I don't know if I have a bot gong. I have an admin set with Sleepy, but that's it. I'll talk to you about it in Discord. Let's see what's going on. So, actually, Neanderthals have a bigger brain. The capacity of Neanderthal brain is actually larger than ours. The question is, thought we had a bigger brain because we were real humans. So first, all our humans. I do want to double down on that. Any species that is a Homo species, Homo means human, right? So Homo erectus is human, Neanderthal is human. Um, we like to separate our advanced thought. And this is true, but we don't see the brain shape that gives us our advanced thought till about 40,000 years ago within Homo sapiens. And we see the start of that advanced thought really coming into evidence prior to that, which means that it comes in that shape, like the shaping comes from the thought, right? Um, but we do see that Neanderthal brains are bigger, and that as we were making the changes that we believe attributed to the change in our brain shape, that they were making the same changes. So if they hadn't died out 10,000 years after we developed this brain shape, they might have ended up developing the same brain shape, especially as we were totally intermixing at the time. We're all living together, we're all having kids together. It's totally possible. The thing is with the brain shape is that all well, other than Florenz, or not Florenzus Nalati, which is a curious character, early humans' brains are shaped like this. Early Homo sapiens, early Neanderthals, early Erectus, all of us are shaped like this. Homo sapien at 40,000 years ago finishes a shift and their brain shape becomes what we call lobular, different lobes, and globular. It's circular, right? It's the three-quarter of a pie, right? This is your forehead. This is your spine, three-quarters of a pie. Um, that is what is thought to attribute to the broad ability of understanding and the faster neuron firing within our brains. And it is been discovered that it is not the size that counts, but the shape. It's not the motion of the ocean, right? It's not the size of the brain that matters. It is the shape of your brain. If Neanderthal were alive today alongside of us, would they have been racified? I.e., I'm assuming, would we have used race theory against them? Absolutely. Once we started othering, we just looked for new excuses to other. God kings maintain their armies from the food you supply and they hoard. To convince you that they need to maintain those armies without realizing those armies are meant to keep you in check, they created the barbarians in the hills coming to steal your abundance. Over 10,000 years, the barbarians in the hills have stuck, but added to the reasonings for othering are nationalism, roughly 6,000 years ago, that other city isn't like you and wants your wealth. Gender, 3,000 years ago with the Greeks, we'd rather be intimate with preteen boys than women because women are broken men. Religion, 1600 years ago, when Christianity is appropriated from the Judaic people by Rome in 400 CE, who'd already appropriated gender othering from the Greeks, making all other religions sin and eradicating science and medicine and questioning God. Race in 1492, when Europeans land on the Taino people of Turtle Island, which is an indigenous term for North America, and need an excuse to eradicate people they document as being close to God and their kindness and communal care. And finally, today, when we have added immigrants escaping war torn countries to the list of people whose inalienable right to life we have removed with othering based on an arbitrary value set again by a dark triad supremacist class who have no humanity and therefore can erase it from others. I'm probably lagging. I apologize, Benevolent. That's page 2, or at least a portion of page 2. We started othering, and we didn't end the otherings that we have. We still other the barbarians in the hills. We still other nations, right? So if Neanderthals were still around today, they probably would have been the first species that we othered. Instead of the barbarians in the hill. And that's what I mean, right? Since they're a different genus, would that not have been a significant stratus, right? A reason to stratify, right? And that's what I'm saying. I think that if they were still around when god kings start developing the need to scare the shit out of you so that you give them your money, you would see Neanderthals would have probably been the first on that list. It would not have been the barbarians in the hills. It would have been the Neanderthals, that other species, right? So yes, I do believe that we would have absolutely othered them and found a way to make them less than if they were still around today. It would have started at 10,000 years ago when othering starts, right? Though if they had lasted, maybe that would have changed the need to become an othering society, right? So I'm not sure. Oh, and that's what okay, so what you're saying, um, no, they would be another species. They wouldn't be another race because is supposed to be existent within a species, right? And they're another species. So we would, instead of having racism, we would have speciesism, right? Um, we would probably classify them as a different species. We would still classify them as human because they're obviously human, but another species of human. And then, and it might be that instead of thinking we have races, we think of ourselves as being two separate species. Sometimes having a common enemy will unite. Like we often think that if the aliens come, hey tripod, if the aliens come, that it's going to unite us, right? Once the aliens come, we're all going to gather together as a human race to fight the aliens, right? Which is also why I think the aliens won't come. But right, we see that having an outside enemy often unites, right? Which is why the narcissistic god kings used othering to start with, right? An outside enemy will make you ignore that I'm hurting you, and it will unite us, right? Oh, sorry, absentee. I saw that something totally different. Um, but so yes, I think that maybe, I mean, so there's a couple different ways it could go, and I couldn't tell you which. It could be that we don't use race, we use speciesism. It could be that because there are two species, we never hit a point of othering. We understand that there's not that need, right? So it could go in a couple different ways. Well, and I'm not going to say that aliens don't exist. I think aliens exist. I don't think ancient aliens affected us, but I do believe aliens exist. I think it's pretty egotistical to think that we're the only thing in the universe that is capable of this level of thought process. That's awesome, Laura. This is Tom Borklin, and you can find Tom Borklin on Insta and Twitter, and he does a lot of Paleolithic art. It's beautiful, and I love the coloring in this. This is actually one of my favorite parts about this piece is that the coloring is in it. Though I'm really into the membrane over the deer that she's skinning. For some reason, identify this person as female. The coloring of the way that the membrane is detailed is huge to me as somebody who's been skinning animals half of my life. Like I'm like, ooh, that's so realistic. Ooh, that looks like just like what it looks like, right? So but there's a lot about this image that's really, really big for me. I can't wait for that book, Amsatia. That looks good. I'm not sure if they had a different sensory processing though, absentia, because of the fact that we know that their auditory process is the same as ours. And if their auditory process is the same as ours, um, so our sensory process is what places us in our space in the globe, right? In our biome, right? It's what tells us the wind's blowing or the earth underneath our feet that we can feel, or I can smell that the dog over there pissed, right? Like that's what our sensory process is. It grounds us, it spaces us. And I would think that Neanderthals are going to have a very similar one because they have to interact in the world in a very similar way, right? Um, they have to have that same shelter clothing thing, right? They have to have the same kind of knowledge of the world around them that we have to survive within it. So I would think that their senses would be similar in the fact that, like, I need to be able to smell the bear so I know that the bear is dangerous, right? That's pretty interesting. And I have no knowledge about neurotypes, to be honest. And so that could be, true. I know that their inner ear demonstrates that they're hearing on the same levels and they're processing it in the same way. But again, that could be a species baseline instead of the individual of the species, right? Like it can be the average processes the same average way, but there are minor differences or there are differences within different groups. I can't wait though. Once you publish, or if you want somebody to look over it and edit and stuff, let me know. Because I'd love to see. I don't know enough about neuros, and so or neurotypes, and so actually, it might actually like side, like co understand a few things. Now it's 67. Oh, the amount of people misfit. Homo florensis is so interesting. Look up Naladi, Erica. That is such Naladi for me is it. Like I'm like am really coming into Naladi. Yeah, it was 1,000. We were up to 1K around 9 o'clock. It's okay. Honestly, I find that when the numbers are lower, it becomes a little bit easier to actually have a conversation. Um, so Dan, that's actually there's actually like a process. It's oh God, what is it called? I have a niece that has it, or a cousin that has it. Um, it's misophonia. Look up misophonia if that's not already what you're relating it to. But misophonia actually will do that. Thank you, Misfit. Nyla's one. I'm not sure. Somebody keeps saying something about Nyla or Naya. I'm not. Did I say? I'm not sure what word I'm saying that makes people hear Naya or Naya. Naladi. Oh, okay. That's why. Homo naladi. Naledi. Um, that tells me more because somebody maybe it was there's somebody who commented on my thing. So Naladi is a species that we find in South Africa from about 335,000 years ago to about 250,000 years ago. or 200,000 years ago. And it is an advanced species. It is as it's like so they have the same brain shape and the same brain capacity, it looks like, that we do, though their size of their brain is small. Their lower body is like Homo sapien, Homo erectus, but their upper body from the L spine up is Australopithecine, like Lucy. So it goes back like 2 million years. And then their brain size is Australopithecine, but their brain shape is modern Homo sapien, which again, we don't see in Homo sapiens until 40,000 years ago. So this is like 200,000 years before we see it in Homo sapiens, right? They actually are now our first evidence of burial. All of the Naladi finds that we have. So Naladi is not the recent discovery, but they've recently discovered things about Naladi. I will put that over on my site today. I have like a really good thing that just came out, a lecture that the guy who is heading the Naladi site published. It's on my link tree, but since my link tree isn't working, you're not going to find it. But I will transfer that over today to the website. So if you go to the Widda Ord website, and it's just nwiddaord.com, if you go to the Widda Ord website, you'll be able to look up more or find the more information on Naladi. Naladi is fucking epic. I love Naladi. I love Naladi because we have evidence of transportation of fire because they used torches to crawl through crawl spaces. We have evidence of advanced burial. We have evidence of like them placing skulls on shelves and then maybe sitting in front of the skulls and having fire and having communion with their dead, right? Like having a fire and conversing with the skull sitting on a shelf, right? And we also see evidence of maybe ceremony within it as well. And there's a lot of evidence, so I will make sure that that's up, and it's pretty cool. And it's not a recent discovery. In order, Neanderthal is in the 1850s. Florensis is in 2003. Naladi is in 2012. Yeah. Denisovian is next in 2010. Naladi is in 2012. And then in the last years, like 2 years, we found Longi, and I think that was in 2021. And then we found a Lonzensis Luzonensis in 21, and that one's in the Philippines. So those are our latest recent, but we have some recent discoveries about Naladi. That's probably what you're thinking of. They did bury their dead. Now, Neanderthals at the very end of Neanderthal existence start burying their dead. We don't see this until roughly about the same time we see cave art and jewelry making. Neanderthals domesticated animals. To some extent. Actually, that's one of the things that we see with Neanderthals captured and kept raptors and could have been cooperatively hunting with gigantic eagles and corvids. One of the evidence that we see with our understanding of them using talons and claws is that they believe that they captured and kept like chicks of golden eagles and corvids and raised them and used them to hunt. So this would be our very first evidence of co-living with animals. I'm not going to say that this is animal husbandry because there's not evidence that they bred them, and animal husbandry is breeding, right? But there is evidence that they coexisted in cooperation and hunted together. Yeah, husbandry is actually breeding your animals. So our first evidence is of actual husbandry. So we have some evidence that maybe Australians were keeping cassowaries and possibly, so we don't know yet whether they took the eggs and hatched the eggs and raised them, or whether they were, and then they would keep them and breed them, or if they were actually breeding them, or if all they did was collect the eggs, right? But yes, Neanderthals, it would be like falconry. And we don't know if it means that they were breeding them, but it looks like they captured them probably. So if you take a chick, right, or if you take an egg and you hatch it, then your hold on a second, then your imprint on that bird means that that bird will work with you and think of you as family And so you can actually get it to train, right? That's how they do falconry usually. Um, so the evidence of domestication, and again, it's not like domestication like we think of. It's capturing and keeping and cooperatively, possibly cooperatively hunting with raptors. And let me see if I can find the space that gives the actual like example of why in this article, because I've got the article in front of me. I'm just trying to say. Okay, so it's not saying the actual like this isn't Psychology Today, so it's not like it's trying to get to journal articles is usually a paywall. And so I go to the articles that actually have like the references and all the different things within them. But ooh, maybe this is it. That is it. Let me see if I can actually sign into this article. No. So I can't get in the article itself to say what the actual evidence is, but the article is stating, and it's the people running it are actually all like you can tell, and the journal is all scholarly and everything, so it's absolutely testable and everything else, right? I just can't get into it. But what they're saying is that they caught birds, took diurnal raptors, and selectively took the largest raptors at their disposal, including the golden eagle. And then they're saying that they think that they kind of treated it as like a holy bird. Um, and okay, so I'm going to read the paragraph, but please understand that it's got a lot of references to other things, but it's not actually. So assessment is rapidly changing as significant evidence is emerging that showing Neanderthals did indeed catch birds and that the practice was geographically and temporally bound. That means within certain locations. Importantly, this new evidence shows that the Neanderthals not only took small to medium sized birds for food, but also large birds of prey in order to take their flight feathers and talons. This inference from these results is that large raptors were taken to use their body parts for symbolic purpose. This implies higher cognitive ability. Okay, so I'm not seeing what the actual direct is. But and that's just because I can't log in. It won't let me log in. I'm sorry. But it is saying that they have evidence that they not only captured them and kept them, but they uh, interacted with it, hunted with them. So starting on Sunday, we'll be going live at 10 p.m. on Sunday night. So it will probably go till midnight. Um, Possible evidence of lateral use. So my understanding is there is evidence of lateral use in Neanderthals, but it's just a couple of different evidences, and you can see that actually in the formation of the bone, the attachments to the bone change during extended periods of use. Like if you throw a spear with your right arm your entire life, the attachment ligaments on the right uh, uh fuck my language, the right arm, upper arm, words not work, the right upper arm are going to be different attachment, like they're going to dig into the bone better to allow for larger musculature for that than it's going to be on your other upper arm. And so you can see by looking at the differences of the muscles attached, or the muscle attachments, whether or not they had heavy use. And you can also see what type of use. Is it an overarm use or is it a straight use, right? Yes, Sunday is going to be 10 PST instead of 8 PST because my daughter's going live at 7, and so I'm trying to make sure that I can be there for her as well. Uh, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take off. I will be transferring a bunch of stuff over to the website today so that you can find stuff on the website today. Again, book should be out Sunday at the latest. And we are going to have t-shirts up hopefully by next week. See you guys soon. Again, Sunday night at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So 12 hours later than now on Sunday. Thank you guys. Love you so much. Have a great day. And over here on YouTube. Bye, everybody. Uh, again, I should have everything out pretty much by the end of the weekend. But the focus will be the book before the end of the weekend. Right now, mainly we're working on editing and making sure everything is hunky dory, and then I'll have it out. Have a great one, everybody. And if you're in Discord, I'll see you there. And if not, I'll see you Sunday night.